Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Tasha Darwent. She's the founder of Resilient Grace and an esteemed expert in holistic health and integrative healing. With over 2 decades of experience, Tasha has dedicated her career to addressing chronic health challenges through a unique blend of conventional and alternative approaches. Welcome to the show, Tasha.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Tasha. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to discuss right now. We'll talk about holistic healing for chronic health challenges. But before we come to this, let's understand a bit about your journey, Tasha, so that people can know who they are listening to and also can learn from your journey itself.
Yeah. So my journey really started with chronic health and mental health challenges when I was about 10. I was diagnosed with anorexia and bulimia, and I struggled with that for a very long time, for decades. I later was, in about 2009, had a lot more physical health, chronic health symptoms that arose, including, major digestive issues and neurological issues and women's health issues and adrenal challenges, as well as continued anxiety and OCD and PTSD and trauma and eating disorder challenges, and all of these things really kind of happening all at the same time. And it was in about 2020 when I finally started to find some real support for all these challenges. I was kind of lost for a really long time in terms of the chronic illness challenges. I had some support for my mental health and my emotional health and my spiritual health, but finding that other support for my physical health took a long time. And during that time, I was a mentor at a halfway house I'm living in Boulder, Colorado. And so it was very much like part of my profession to be working with people on their own journeys of healing and recovery, from all types of challenges. And yeah, I think, that's a bit of my background. Obviously, I can explore many of those different places, but that's kind of the general overview.
Right. Thank you for that, Tasha. Now, to understand, you talk about combining conventional as well as, alternative approaches to chronic health issues. Normally, people get confused just by themselves to choose between the two, either, conventional medicine or alternative medicine. To put them together, how does that work out? Means, is it easy or is it very difficult? Because then you need to talk to both the practitioners, and both will have their own way of suggesting you things. How does that work out?
Yeah, you're so right. And for me, it was a very messy and imperfect journey. I really stumbled my way through really out of desperation. In 2009, when my chronic health issues got much worse, and I was in the hospital often with bowel obstructions and ovarian cyst ruptures and all these kinds of things, I was really desperate. So I was open to both the conventional wisdom, whatever conventional wisdom, or, medication or surgeries, right, could potentially help me. But what happened was that after a certain point in time, through going the Western route, and I've always been very holistically minded, right? So I've always been kind of aware of the different levels in which we can approach things. And I was trying to both use the conventional as well as alternative, but it took me a long time to find accurate information in the alternative health world that truly got to the root of my symptoms. But I started to clearly see I needed to explore that world more when conventional treatments alone, medication, surgeries, different specialists, what they could offer basically to me felt like it had a beginning and an end, right? Where I went in to the hospital and I had many life-saving surgeries. But then the doctors couldn't tell me what to eat or how to nourish my body or how to prevent this from happening again. All they could say is, it's probably genetic. It's probably going to happen again. Your only answer is more surgery. And this was more surgery on bowel obstruction issues. So just cutting out more and more of my bowel. And I knew like this, there's got to be other answers, And so through my journey of really combining conventional with alternative, it's very much a discernment process, an internal discernment process, right? Because now that I have found, I think, really the root of my problems going on in my body, there's still times where I need medication to help me, during certain junctures, or there's times where I might need to go into the hospital and get a scan to make sure I don't have a bowel obstruction or an ovarian cyst. And so I think it's really about using our intuition and starting to trust ourselves, to use our discernment to say, what tool are we going to use for this particular time and moment? Because there's value in all of it, but I think it's about, where we're coming from and you trusting our own bodies and our own inner wisdom to guide us in that process. And it looks unique for everyone.
Right. So how do you come in? Where does your resilient grace come in between? And you are an expert in holistic health and integrative healing. Does that mean that you are a doctor or you're not a doctor? How do you then suggest people?
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but I am a certified holistic health coach. And I'm a certified yoga teacher. I'm a certified recovery coach for people going through substance abuse recovery and mental health challenges. So yeah, that's kind of where my expertise is. And so I started my company about 5 years ago. I had worked in mental health and holistic health for about 10, 11 years with other companies and other treatment centers, clinical treatment centers. And I just really got to a place where I wanted to have more freedom and autonomy to approach things more holistically, right? To really tend to the interplay of the body, mind, and spirit, because I had seen in my own journey how healing, tending to all these different levels of our being really can be. And so that's kind of what I like to bring to the work when I'm working with clients now is, it really starts by, meeting people where they're at. Some people, I kind of have a large umbrella of the types of folks that I work with, but essentially it's mental health, addiction, eating disorders, and chronic illness. And so, people that come to me fill out a health intake form so I can get an understanding of what symptoms they're experiencing, what kind of support they have, what their lifestyle is like, right? What their self-care is like, their history. And we really start with the lowest hanging fruit, like what is the biggest need for someone at that time? Is it emotional? Are there real physical symptoms that really need tending to gain stability, to then deepen that process and looking at the patterns of people's, thoughts and feelings, because those create our actions, right? And if those create our actions and really influence the choices that we're able or unable to make regarding our health, then of course we have to look at that, right? We can't just say like, oh, here's a protocol, eat these things, take these supplements, do these exercises, and right, you'll heal, because we all have a deep psychology and habitual behavior, right? And so we really have to look at the psychology as well, and the inner workings, as well as the steps people can take that affect their outer health. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yes, indeed, Tasha.
Yeah.
So, in the US, how does it work? You have to tell it to both the people, isn't it? Especially to the conventional medicine person, that you are taking other medicines also beyond the conventional medicine, that you are going for alternative medicine. Then do the doctors say that no, it's not my responsibility anymore, that, or do they purely say, you can't do it? How do you then suggest, because it's a very tricky situation. You
Yeah.
also may not want to take a risk beyond a certain point. You may advise something, the patient may understand things differently. At the end of the day, it all very much depends how they put things together. How does it work?
You're so right. You're so right. So you're talking about when I'm working with clients and they're also
Yes, yes.
conventional doctors and there's a bit of a conflict sometimes.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm very familiar with this. And you're right. It's such a tricky place to navigate. And so my work is really to, inform the clients that I'm working with of these different root causes, right? Of what's creating their chronic illness or their chronic mental health issues. And to give them the information that I have learned and I have studied and I have been trained through, and so that they have the options, right? And it's also really, it's not my job to control anyone, to force anyone. That's why it's very much a dance about meeting people where they're at, right? Because some people I'm sharing, like if I said, hey, cut out dairy and gluten and canola oil and all these things, I just know, and they've expressed to me, that's not where I'm at and that's not what I'm going to do. So I work with someone where they're at, where their current belief systems are, with where they're willing and where they're open. And it's a dance, it's a collaboration. And it's a collaboration with their other healthcare providers, because, there has to be respect for one another. And even if there is a disagreement, then there has to be that respect. And it's really about giving my clients the information, sharing with them at times my experience, or sharing the evidence that I have around this information, and letting them choose, right? And really honoring their path and their process.
absolutely, absolutely. So, how does one get started if a patient has any chronic issues? How do you get them started with both the things together?
With the conventional as well as the
Yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, my side, obviously I'm not a conventional doctor. So if someone comes to me, they'll fill out a health intake form, it'll share what they're eating, like I was sharing, what their lifestyle is, if they're on medication, what their main symptoms have been, what their inner world is like, because that's a huge part. And I'll start there with them, and if there's really some concerns that are standing out, that I'm like, oh, maybe this person should go get some blood work, or this person should go get
Okay.
a scan, or this, right? And we talk about that. And I certainly always say, if I'm feeling that type of concern, make those recommendations, because we have to, as alternative health practitioners, say, like, check with your doctors, and to really play it safe, right? And so that's what I would say. That's what I do with folks, is that I see where they're at, I see what they're bringing to the table, I hear their concerns, and then I would recommend going to a conventional doctor to get additional things done if they're feeling like they need that, or if I'm seeing that could really be necessary. Then I'll make that recommendation.
Absolutely. Now, alternative medicine, has a big scope in terms of not medicine, but in terms of other approaches, either in terms of nutrition, either in terms of, having something or not having something.
Hmm.
How do you look at that? Is it that area which can come a lot under your domain, and that is where you can experiment, because you are not adding any medicine to anything, and that is where. But in terms of food, in terms of understanding the issue better, because conventional doctors are also, even if they try their best, they do not have that much of time to look at this whole area together. So that's why a lot of this functional medicine and all these things have come up, so that things can be looked at. What
Yep.
are your options here, to at least advise and make some nice impact in terms of the patient's overall health, without discontinuing any medicine, and neither
Right.
prescribing any medicine need for that, but still making a
Yes.
whole lot of difference to the patient's quality of life?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's many modalities that can be used in an alternative medicine holistic approach, because it does tend to um, body, mind, and spirit. At least that's the way that I see it. And so nutrition is a big piece. Nutrition is something that can kind of make or break our health, right? Food is medicine. And so people would be so astonished with things they can take out of their diet that can stop feeding the root cause of disease, which leads to chronic illness, and the things that they can also, the healing foods they can put into their diet, which can improve their health and again eradicate the roots of chronic illness. So nutrition and specialized nutrition protocols are really, really huge. Another place is supplementation. And of course, with people being on medication, you have to be aware of any contraindications, which in the things that I advise people to take, there's really only a few places that could land in that area. So supplementation is another big piece. Another piece is really that nervous system regulation. So when we're constantly in fight or flight, we're basically constantly in a stress response, and that stress response and that adrenaline and that cortisol is constantly feeding again the root cause of our illnesses, which are oftentimes low viral, bacterial, toxic heavy metal related, toxin related in general. These are some of the core root causes. So finding tools and practices and supplying people with these tools that help regulate their nervous systems, which mean, mindfulness meditation, certain journaling, like elements of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, or DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. This can really help someone tend to the inside, their recurring thoughts, feelings, and patterns that put them either in a state of rest and digest, calm and heal, where the body can heal, or fight or flight. And we're not healing if we're constantly in a state of fight or flight. So really kind of giving someone that time and space to process and to feel heard and to feel seen, and also giving them those tools to work on navigating their own nervous system and their own inner world is really also what I focus on with people.
Right, right, Tasha. Now, a lot of these chronic illnesses, generally one understands this is chronic, so this has to be there forever or for a long, very, very long time. And they get accustomed to this whole life of it's like, the lifestyle disease or many other things are there.
Yeah.
And you talk about that healing is possible.
Yep.
How should people with chronic illnesses, issues, understand this healing part? Though medical science, a lot of doctors will not be able to tell because of their own constraints. But a lot of cases have come where people have healed themselves fully of chronic issues, which medically will look like that it will only be managed. It can only be managed by taking medicines or doing one thing or the other. How do you look at this?
So I was this person. Who was told by many doctors that like what I had, these various conditions with my bowel or my brain or my ovaries or whatnot, couldn't be healed, or my mental health, bipolar or anxiety or depression. And it was always going to be something to manage. And I sit here today very much deeply healed. And I have more healing to do. It's an ongoing process, especially when you're approaching it holistically to get to the root of things. So what I would say is you need the right information, right? You need the right information of what's causing your illness, which is oftentimes it isn't found out there in the medical system. So that is the first and foremost thing. And as I shared, usually what is at the root of people's chronic health issues are viral conditions, bacterial conditions, toxic heavy metal, and environmental pollutants, as well as chronic stress and different exposures to pathogens. So having the truth of the root cause of these chronic conditions is key, because if we have that, which anyone that's gone through a chronic illness journey could say, hey, I've been to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they've told me there is no known cause and there is no known cure, which is why people get told, This is something that you just have to manage because we don't know why it's there. So we don't know how to get to the root of it. But there are answers. They do exist. And so I think finding those right answers, and if people are wondering and curious, about where to find those, this is what I do, and I would be happy to help people to get to those root causes. But I would also say that, it's really important to notice with Western doctors, just because a Western doctor, and with all due respect to them, because most of them are great people, just because they say, hey, there's no known cause, it's because they don't know it. It doesn't mean that it exists. What that actually is it's an invitation to look elsewhere. And so pretty much everyone on a chronic illness journey that's ended up healing has said, no, I don't accept that. I know I am a powerful being, even though I feel sick and weak right now, but I know that I have innate capacity to heal, and my body is working for me, and my mind and heart and my soul and spirit can lead me to that healing. And it's so much deeper than just we're victims of our physical bodies as well.
Absolutely. So people who may watch this episode or come to know, what are the things that they can connect with you for?
Yes. So I my website and these kinds of things. Yeah. So well, one thing is I have a free support group for people going through chronic illness. It has been Tuesday evenings at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, but due to international demand, people wanting to join all over the world, I'm playing with the timing that is. So people can go to my website, which is resilient-grace.com, and check out kind of the services that I offer. I share a lot of my experience, both personally and professionally, what I've been through, and the kind of the tools and techniques and the trainings that I have. I'm also on Instagram at Tasha Holistic Health Mentor, and I'm on Facebook as the same handle, Tasha Holistic Mentor. So those are some various ways people can contact me to learn more about, if I might be a support that they can find to help them on their chronic illness, mental health, physical health journeys.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.